Imagine a candlelit room in 1008, a young woman gasping for air as lace-gloved hands press her throat into silence. The door is locked. Outside, the laughter of men drowns her final struggle. Within minutes, her body will vanish into the hidden cellar of a brothel in Pennsylvania. One of dozens who entered but never came out. For nearly 50 years, whispers told of a pair of sisters, the Everharts, whose empire of pleasure concealed an empire of death. The Everhart sisters, Clara and Josephine, were daughters of an iron worker in Lancaster County. Their father drank himself to death after losing his arm in a mill accident. By 1869, the sisters were left destitute, two women with no dowry, no future, and no mercy. They transformed a crumbling boarding house into a brothel. To the public, they were cunning entrepreneurs. But the town whispered another story. Women who went to work there often disappeared, leaving only unsigned letters behind. The Everharts paid priests, police, and aldermen. Lancaster thrived off the soldiers and railroad men who poured wages into their brothel. Ministers preached against sin on Sunday while secretly visiting on Saturday. Mothers who asked questions about missing daughters were silenced with shame, told their girls had run off to New York. The town depended on forgetting. Silence was not ignorance. Silence was survival. Beneath the Everharts' brothel lay a labyrinthine cellar. The air was damp, heavy with iron. According to testimony decades later, women were led down there after they resisted, after they tried to flee, or after they became pregnant. Shackles were bolted to the wall, a furnace glowed, burning more than coal. This basement, townsfolk would later say, was the stomach of the house, where women were swallowed and never returned. The Everharts were not merely madams, they trafficked bodies. Railroad men, traveling salesmen, and even local officials fed their desires. Those who paid enough were offered something darker, the Red Room, where victims were drugged, bound, and broken for the amusement of powerful men. Clara kept meticulous records of payments. Pages that survived detail not only sums of money, but initials of men who later became judges, senators, and factory owners. By 1890, more than 90 women were whispered to have vanished in Lancaster. Newspaper clippings at the time simply called it the age of runaways. But families knew. Some kept photographs tucked into prayer books, praying for a body to bury. The Everharts' brothel was the last place many were seen alive. A widow named Margaret Calloway lost 2 daughters within 3 years. She accused the sisters publicly, but her testimony was dismissed as hysteria. She was later found hanging in her barn. The most chilling rumor tied the sisters to a Catholic orphanage. Parish records hint at an arrangement. Unwanted girls who aged out of the orphanage were sometimes placed. In the Everhart establishment, priests would visit to bless the building. The children, barely 15, were delivered like livestock. Many would never be seen again. Those who survived spoke of rituals. Clara, the elder, would force the women to kneel while she cut strands of their hair, burning it in a brass bowl. She whispered prayers backwards, her voice low and guttural. Josephine collected rosaries, tearing the beads one by one during punishments. Survivors later said they believed the sisters worshipped not God, but something older, something that demanded sacrifice. The Everharts' success depended on the complicity of men. Doctors signed false death certificates. Sheriffs refused to investigate. Husbands who suspected their wives were taken there stayed silent, fearful of being implicated. The brothel became less a house of pleasure and more a fortress of corruption, guarded not by locks, but by shame. When workers finally unearthed the basement furnace decades later, they discovered a pit layered with ash, bone fragments, and melted teeth. Forensic study was primitive, but enough to confirm human remains. Over 90 sets of bones, most belonging to young women. The fire had been kept alive for decades, fed by wood, coal, and flesh. The sisters' empire began to crack in 1912. A young woman named Evelyn Whitlock escaped, staggering barefoot to a church. Her back was crosshatched with burns. She told the minister what she had seen: chains, whips, and women dragged into the furnace room. But when she begged him to intervene, he locked the doors and prayed aloud, ignoring her screams. By morning, Evelyn had vanished. In 1921, a priest's ledger was discovered in the rectory of St. Mary's. Written in Latin shorthand, it listed deliveries of young women to the Everharts. The names included orphans, widows, and even parish servants. The ledger disappeared into diocesan archives, never to be mentioned publicly again. But one copied page survived, handed secretly to a journalist who claimed he was followed by men in black coats until he abandoned the story. During the First World War, the brothel thrived. Soldiers on leave were herded into the Everhart's establishment. Posters advertised relief for the brave. But as casualty lists grew, mothers began asking where their daughters had gone. The government needed morale, not scandal. Federal investigators visited Lancaster once. Their notes, declassified in 1973, revealed they were ordered to stand down. By 1928, the Everharts were old women. They closed their brothel suddenly, vanishing overnight. No bodies, no graves, just empty rooms with rotting curtains and a furnace that still smelled of bone. Some claimed they boarded a ship to Europe. Others swore they saw two women, veiled in black, walking barefoot into the Susquehanna River. Lancaster buried its memory. The house was torn down in 1931. A bakery was built over the cellar. Schoolchildren passed each day unaware of what lay beneath. Families who had lost daughters were discouraged from speaking, branded as troublemakers. The town's prosperity, its factories and parishes, depended on erasing the Everharts from history. In 1950, during renovations of the bakery basement, workers struck a hollow wall. Behind it lay stacks of bones, dozens of skulls arranged in a pyramid. Some bore scorch marks, others had nails hammered through the eye sockets. The police confiscated the remains, but no arrests followed. Official records list the discovery as animal remains. Descendants of the Everharts still live in Pennsylvania. Old diaries discovered in attics speak of nightmares, women screaming in chimneys, blood seeping through wallpaper, infants crying in dry wells. One diary reads, "We are not punished for what we did. We are punished for what we concealed." The Catholic Diocese of Lancaster has never acknowledged its connection. Priests who dared to speak of the ledger were transferred abruptly, their careers ruined. Some say the Everharts were protected because they provided not just sin, but sacrifice for powerful men. What was worshipped in that cellar remains unnamed. Even now, families in Lancaster speak in whispers. Photographs are turned to the wall. Generations later, granddaughters of the missing women suffer unexplained terrors. Night sweats, choking dreams, aversions to fire. Trauma that seeps through bloodlines, never buried with the bones. The Everhart's brothel was not only a slaughterhouse, it was a wound carved into memory itself. When you walk through Lancaster today, you will not find a plaque, not a memorial, not even a record in the local museum. The Everhart Sisters have been erased, but sometimes at night, passers-by swear they hear laughter behind the bakery walls, or the faint scrape of chains beneath the floor. A town can bury its history, but history does not forgive. It waits, and it remembers.